So right as we're about to film this little bit to camera, a robin has turned up and created great excitement. He was just about to nod off pretty much. Anyway, over the last decade I have been absolutely blessed to spend most of my time out and about on the canals and living on boats, and I consider myself doubly lucky to have been able to do that on the broad sort of North Wales border area, where we've got some absolutely stunning, natural, beautiful places. And of course, we've got a mixture amongst all that of some of these epic architectural and engineering feats, such as the mighty Pontcysyllte Aqueduct here. Now, living on a boat without a marina mooring and having to move location every 2 weeks to stick to the rules is certainly a little bit more of a rootless life than some people are used to, and it certainly wouldn't suit everybody. But make no mistake, I'm not trying to claim I've had any kind of epic, nomadic, adventurous existence with travel to the four corners of the globe. That's the last thing I can think I would want to do. I just want a nice calm life, please. But it certainly has been a little more rootless than some people would necessarily enjoy or particularly experience living in a house. And I feel like that's got a lot of benefits and also some drawbacks. Like I say, firstly, I know there's some people I've spoke to about moving the boat, and they ask me, where do you keep your boat? And then I say, well, anywhere on this sort of 30-mile plus stretch of canal, basically. Even before I had a boat, I was living a pretty rootless lifestyle for somebody who actually lived at home with their mum. And this is because I was spending multiple nights a week stopping at various friends' or family's houses. And this would often see me sleeping on one of my world-famous floor beds, basically the sofa cushions put onto a living room floor, and then hoping that it's not too often that I wake up having slipped off those and find myself with my face on the hard, cold wooden flooring. Yeah, that did happen more than one occasion, and it wasn't a comfortable day afterwards. But you may have even seen in recent times, if you've followed me on Twitter and things like that, where I've posted pictures of me and good old Charlie cuddled up, and in the background, instead of there being a bed or a head of a bed, it's actually a skirting board. And that's because even stopping at my girlfriend's house, because I'm such a terrible sleeper, I would end up sleeping on a floor one way or another, and sometimes have Charlie as a nice snory pillow. On a serious note though, this did turn into something a little more interesting once I'd moved on to a boat. And that was that when my friends and family, and even sometimes my friends' families, would go away on holiday, I would go and look after the house for a week. So whether that was feeding the pets, keeping an eye on the garden, etc, etc. But I would declare that my land life holiday while they were away on actual holiday. And so it basically gave me the opportunity to go and spend a week in various people's local areas, whether that was in Wales, Shropshire, maybe a little further afield up towards the Midlands a bit more, and basically have an actual solid base to spend maybe up to a week in, to go off and enjoy and explore some of the points of interest in their particular local areas. My dad's house is a great example. Like, only about 10 miles from this particular spot, and sometimes maybe even not 10 miles from where I was living on my boat at that particular moment. But I'd pack my bags, get the bus out to his house, this was before I had a car, and then just go and live there for a week. And I remember discovering that there was an old manor house that had been taken over by the RAF during, I believe, World War II, and then left in ruins and completely overgrown and fallen into utter disrepair and almost unrecognisable as a building. And it was only about 10 minutes from my dad's house, and we'd never known about it for the years that he'd lived in that particular village. And I just discovered it purely on my general rootless wanderings around exploring the countryside. And I can't express how much I love that sort of stuff. And of course, once I discovered that, it was like, oh my goodness me, I need to get here as often as possible and see every nook and cranny. And amazingly, there was loads of, because it was built and taken over in the wartime, they built loads of air raid shelters. So you're just walking through this sort of like woodland area, not this particular area, but just general rural, overgrown, wildy sort of looking old woodland. And then suddenly there's a doorway, and it's a proper concrete tube air raid shelter. And again, I discovered that through sheer rootlessness, inability to sit still, and I suppose nosiness. Something that has always stuck in my mind is having a conversation with somebody many years ago, long before I ever had a boat, but well into my rootless lifestyle sort of period. And they lived in a small local village to my hometown called Western Rin. This is where my friends used to live, so I'd spent many times and many nights and days out in that region. And the person I was having a conversation to had moved into a set of new build houses about 3 or 4 years prior. And the new builds were about the closest houses to an absolutely beautiful old stone bridge that had been long ago used to go over a little tramway, and just this wonderful little adorable sort of scenic place with an interesting little bit of local history in it. They did not have a clue about where I was talking, and I felt like I must have been misunderstanding where they lived, because it seemed impossible to me that you could live somewhere for years on end and not realise, or not just somehow have the curiosity, or in passing discover that within minutes of your front door there's this lovely old stone bridge that inexplicably stands in the woods. I'm going to say, I know that I am not the typical person, and that what I want from life and how I live is definitely atypical, to say the least. However, I just feel like surely there's got to be a base level of human curiosity and interest in the things around you, especially if you're living somewhere in a fixed location. And I suppose this then brings it back to me, and I wonder, is it my rootless life that has driven my curiosity as I found more and more interesting places in different areas that I've been lucky enough to stay in a house in? Or is it my natural restlessness and nosiness and inability to sit still, as I say, that has then driven my rootless life to go, oh, we've got an opportunity, right? They're going away on holiday for a few days. Oh, it's going to be awkward to get to that place, but once I get there, yeah, I'm sure there's got to be something interesting around there. I suppose ultimately, it's not even necessarily the joy of a rootless life that I'm trying to talk about in this video. It's simply the joy of curiosity, local history, and being able to spend time in some absolutely beautiful places. If some of those places are slightly hidden and the majority of local residents never discover them, then I suppose ultimately it's a benefit for me to find them unspoiled, and it's probably not even their loss because they weren't interested in the first place. And on that bizarre note, I don't know if that's an upbeat note or not, I will simply say thank you so much for tuning in, my friends. Have an absolutely fantastic day. Please take a look at my books. And of course, my friends, keep it interesting, keep it boat worthy, and of course, farewell.